I went to 13 different schools and lived in 18 different places that I remember. I was always the new kid and just an easy target for bullies. It was never anyone in my class. It was rarely around school. It was cliques of older girls, like Michaela and later Traci. And I was told, you can't reason with them, you can't play nice with them, they're too screwed up. If you don't fight back with equal measure, they'll never stop. And just kids being kids, right? No, I get into my first hairdressing job, and I'm working a skeleton crew on a Sunday, and this woman comes into the break room and accuses me of stealing her customer. I'm like, well, I didn't know. Your name wasn't up there, and she didn't say anything. And she dives over the table, knocks me off my chair to the ground, and starts pulling my hair and scratching my face. And I call my manager the next day, and all I get is, you're fired. Click. No conversations, no questions asked. A few years later, I'm still hairdressing, and I'm working a second job at a laundromat. And I run into Kelly from high school, and we hang out a few times, and she's looking for a job. Well, I had just found another second job, a little better pay, closer to home. And I'm like, well, go to the laundromat. Perfect timing. Told her the days, the hours, the pay, they're good people. Perfect, right? No, 4 or 5 weeks later, Dolly calls, and she's like, Kelly didn't show. She didn't call. We can't reach her. We can't have this. There's only 2 other people working, keeping this place open 12/7. And we just can't have this. Well, I understand. I called her twice, did not hear back. And fine, I'll come back. The job I left for, they said they'd work around my day job, but every week it was the same battle with the schedule, same hassle, so I just went back. About a week later, Kelly calls me, and she's hysterical. You stole my job. You stole my job. I'm like, I didn't steal your job, Kelly. You disappeared for a week. What happened? We all called you. Well, I found out I was pregnant, and I had to talk to my boyfriend. You stole my job. And she slams the phone down. Called her back. 3 times she slams the phone down on me. Now, if she'd ever calmed down and called me back, I'd have sent her down the other way to UDF. Days, hours, pay. She'd have been sitting in a nice air-conditioned store instead of an open-air laundromat with a dry cleaning machine spewing perfumes at her while she was pregnant. Now, I wouldn't have told her she could use me as a reference again. But no, I never heard from her, not her or her family, in the almost 2 years I worked there. But once I left and started going back to do laundry, I saw her mom. And the first time I walk in and go to set my stuff down and go over and talk to her, Karen postures and makes this face and squeals like a rabid animal. Like, okay, I'm not going to bother you. I go about my business. Every time over the next decade I saw Karen around town, she would posture like a rabid animal and squeal and make that face. Now, Kelly saw her sister kick me to the curb years before, knowing I had no one and nowhere to go. I never held a grudge, but Kelly knew I was an easy target. I got with Plura and Dolly one time after that, years later, and the whole time they were talking about people stealing from the laundromat. Stealing what? There was $20 in a lockbox in a locked cabinet. But hey, if you think I was stealing from the laundromat after 2 years, then I was wrong about you too. I saw Kelly once after this. 2010, 2011, after this group had destroyed my career, and I'm standing in line at a food pantry, and there's Kelly. And the whole time she's just staring at the ground, hiding behind this old man. I mean, she wouldn't look up, she wouldn't look around, she's just hiding behind this guy, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to bother you. I bet that's my fault too, huh? Did I destroy your entire career over 4 weeks at a laundromat? So then Traci. Little backstory. I was fired from my job for not screwing the owner while his girlfriend was out of town. And I apply at this bar and restaurant. Straight up owners, nice couple. The manager has 5 girls who all work there in some capacity. I'm thinking I hit the jackpot, right? Not allowed to drink at work. I'm thinking at least I'm not going to have to deal with the drama and the drugs and the sexual harassment from the employees and management. No. Traci gets drunk one night and drives home drunk and comes in the next shift hysterical. She had hit somebody's car in the parking lot. Well, she didn't have to worry about her job. She worked for her mother. And come to find out, it was my car. It was a 73 Ford. It was a 20-year-old car. I'm like, don't worry about the car, Tracy. I said, you can't even see the dent in the bumper. Big steel bumper. Hey, it's not a big deal. I've done stupid stuff, and I've been lucky. Just get over it. Just move on, right? Nope. Week later, I come into work, and she's at the other end of the bar, whispering to my coworkers, whispering down at the other end of the bar. And now I'm being accused of drinking on the job. Why would I drink on the job, Tracy? She fixes me up with her sister's ex-boyfriend. And he picks me up, and we go sit in a bar with his friends. I don't want to sit in a bar. I work in a bar. Then she invites me over to her house. And she's bragging on her house, and she's bragging on her fiancé, and she's a brand new house in a neighborhood full of brand new houses, and she's bragging on all her stuff, and she's like, don't you want this? Don't you want this? No, Tracy, I don't want your stuff. And she squeals and runs from the room. And sure enough, I go into work, and I'm being accused of stealing. Why? I'm not stealing. I'm not perfect. Give me my own register. If it's wrong, I'll pay for it. Nope. I'm just watching everyone around me go on defense. No conversations, no questions asked, no right to defend myself. You know what I wanted, Tracy? I wanted to do my job. I wanted to keep a roof over my head, and I wanted a good night's sleep. I'm sure there's a million people out there with fibromyalgia or something similar who knows what it's like to have constant pain for months on end and not be able to get a good night's sleep. You know what I wanted, Tracy? I wanted to do my job, keep a roof over my head, and get a good night's sleep. I'm sure there's millions of people out there with fibromyalgia or something similar that knows what it's like to go for months with constant pain and not be able to even get a good night's sleep. You know what I remember most about that winter? Drinking a half a pot of coffee every night, trying to stay vertical and chatty in another customer service job, and using lock de-icer to clear the windshields at 3 a.m. so I could drive home. But this woman was so hell-bent on destroying me, I should have charged her something for the bumper and got the heat fixed. I mean, being accused of drinking and stealing, I'd have never got another customer service job. I'd end up living in that car before winter was out. Why? Hey, she had the man god, she had the dollar signs, she had the power. It wasn't just kids being kids, was it? You want a good laugh? I thought that BS would end after high school. And then once I got out of customer service. Spent 6.5 years in manufacturing, constant sexual harassment. Sure, there was the petty power trips and baby games, but I'd started immediately with one department. And management and HR said, hey, don't file a report, don't say anything, it'll only cost you your job. I don't want anybody to lose their job, I just want it to stop. Nope, never from the line. It was managers, engineers, refusing to train me right, screwing with my work because I wouldn't sleep with them. That'll get better when I get into a professional office, right? Oh, so I just about finished school, and I get my first IT job. And these women immediately go on attack. I had to go out of town to a training class with them, and it was a cat fight the whole time. Buy this, buy that, why won't you buy something? Bragging on their houses, bragging on their cars, bragging on their status symbols, buying stuff and shipping it home. I mean, I'm just flabbergasted. I don't understand it. And I ran into one of my coworkers later, and he's talking about making nearly $70,000 a year working there. He says, well, it must have been nice making big bucks right out of school. Really? With a 2-year degree? I mean, I was being offered $19,000 a year for my first IT jobs. But hey, we had the same basic job title and sat in the same cube farm, so I must have been making big bucks, right? Yeah, perception trumps reality. So one more. Back in high school, I'm in this foster home. I'm working 2 jobs, trying to finish school, which was no small miracle. And I'm having fibro flares already, though it was years before I knew what it was. And this girl I take the bus to school with starts talking to me out of the blue. And she's talking about her house, she's talking about her family, she's talking about all her stuff. And she comes over after school, and she wants to see my room, and she wants to see my stuff. And she's standing there, unblinking, bared teeth, just doing this. Right over my head. I have no clue what's going on here, right? Haven't thought of this girl in nearly 30 years. She never spoke to me again, but now I get it. She was just getting her digs in that I didn't have enough stuff. Now I know that means the world to you. I know it's the only meaning in most people's existence, but it never did mean the world to me. My stuff never defined me, okay? I understand now why I've always felt like an alien in a strange world. Why I really never understood what drives people, because it's that simple. It's all about the man god, it's all about the dollar signs, it's all about the power. And I'm not belittling anyone, their creature comforts or their toys. I mean, if you create or contribute something positive in this world that makes you good money, I respect that. And if you don't have to tear people down or pit people against each other in order to build yourself up, well, you may be a unicorn. You know all I wanted? You know what all I ever really felt that I needed in this world? Was a job that wasn't physically exhausting or physically destroying me, that made a livable wage, that I could coast through for months when I had a fibro flare. Interesting, challenging, good work environment, sure, that's all I sing. But I just wanted to be able to do my job. And all I wanted was good people in my life. Not perfect people, just good people, good friends, whatever capacity. Yeah. But there's always been the Tracis and the Carries who are just entitled to destroy someone for fun and sport. Or like the Vickies and the Scotts who are just straight up entitled to everything I'd worked my whole life for. So yeah, then there was Vicki. 13 years Vicki and I were friends. She knew I married a sociopath. She knew he had destroyed me financially, he destroyed my home, and he had just wrecked me mentally. She knew I went back to work in 2 jobs to clean up the mess he left me with. And when I sold that house, they jumped at the chance to help. Stay here, save some money. Okay. I mean, I had a motel room with a full kitchenette lined up for me and my dog, $110 a week. But we'd been friends for so long, and I loved her kids. Great, thank you. Nope, it started immediately. Vicki says they're going to be out late. Can I watch Michael and make him pancakes for dinner? Sure. So I spend 5 minutes wiping down the stove, cleaning up the kitchen, putting the dishes away, and she walks in and takes a look at that kitchen, and she's pissed. And she won't say a word. I'm like, what's wrong, Vicki? Nothing. Another time they're going to be late. She asks me to watch Michael, and she asks me to vacuum up and pick up while she's, before she gets home. Sure. So she walks into the living room, and she sees these vacuum marks underneath the end table, and she's fixated on them. And she's turning purple. She's livid. What's wrong, Vicki? Nothing. Michael and I are standing there watching her, and she stomps around the couch, back over to where the desk is, and sees that all the little paper scraps have been vacuumed up. And she's just furious and won't say a word. Couldn't do anything right. Friday, I'm watching Michael again. And I'd caught the weather. It's supposed to start raining Saturday morning and rain all week. Anytime it rained, anytime the snow melted, their basement flooded with a foot of water. So I send Michael around to collect up clothes and towels, and I'm going to get laundry started. I'm coming upstairs with the first load of towels as she comes in the back door, and she's furious. She just rips that basket from my hands, rips on my bad arm. She's standing there trying to throw a fit, slamming bath towels. What's wrong? She won't say a word. I just walked away. I just left it. Sure enough, the basement was flooded by 10 a.m. and it stayed that way till Thursday. I just couldn't do anything right. And then I realized that she just saved all the housework for Sunday so she could look busy all day in front of Dave. Well, just say that. I don't care. Every Saturday, Dave would be getting ready to go to work, and she'd stand at the kitchen counter, polishing the same cup, wiping the same spot until that truck pulled out the driveway, and then she'd drop everything and be horizontal in front of her Lifetime movies. 4, 5, 6 hours. She'd get up to eat a few times. There was always new dishes in the sink. And as soon as that truck pulled back in, she'd be standing at the sink looking busy. Got to the point where I'd come in from work, and she'd run over to the kitchen counter, flip the water on, start moving stuff around and looking busy. I don't care. Just tell me what you want. No. So now I'm trying to get out, but I'm in so much pain. And my surgery's scheduled for January. And I'm like, if I can just take a sick day and get all my stuff out, I'll just move down the road to the motel. But the offer was accepted on that condo, and I'm thinking, okay, just a few more weeks. Immediately, she's trying to start a fight with me. You need to throw me a candle party. Oh, Vicki, I've had 2 parties my whole life, and you pulled a no-show both times. And she just laughed. Well, you didn't spend enough on me. You know I don't burn scented candles. You know I don't want any of that junk. And she'd just laugh. Then she tried accusing me of hitting her kids. BS. Bullshit. They were good kids. Never, rarely ever had to ask them to do anything or not do anything. And they were so used to dodging their mother's tantrums. I mean, Johnny was always her whipping post, and Michael was always trying to play the peacekeeper. And I see it now, but at the time I was just floored. I didn't understand what was going on. And at some point it hits me. Right before I moved in there, Vicki started, would you get with Dave if I died? Would you get with Dave? Why not? He'd get with you. Well, let me tell you again. For 13 years, I never had a conversation with Dave. I only got talked at by Dave. Okay? I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm saying they were perfect for each other. Never in 13 years had I ever thought we were compatible, but I couldn't convince her of that. For 3 months, I sat there watching them lie to each other about everything. Stupid stuff. Where they're going, what they're doing, what they're spending, where stuff came from. I mean, I'd mention what we'd done during the day, and she'd turn purple and just throw a fit. She'd just get mad. I'm like, what? Just tell me what he's supposed to think we were doing. I don't care. Not a word. And the money. She's like, I need money for the turnpike. He'd hand her 20. I need more money for gas. He'd hand her 40. I'm like, oh, you take the turnpike? You want to stop at her after work? I don't take the turnpike. This bench. I got this bench free. Well, I went over there to look at this woman's because she's selling furniture. She didn't get that bench free. She paid like $100 for that bench. And Dave, I got this free on my Best Buy card. I got that free on my Best Buy card. Finally, I'm like, well, maybe I'll buy this and that and go get me a free computer. And he's like, it's only 2%. Yeah, I know. Now, I have a hard enough time keeping the days of the week straight when I'm in a fibro flare. I can't imagine spending 20 years of my life like this, right? But the kicker is, Dave had told me years before, at least a decade earlier, you can't tell Vicki nothing. She's too insecure. He didn't say you couldn't tease Vicki. He didn't say you couldn't joke with Vicki. You can't tell her nothing. So why would he play that game with her? He knew the moment he put that thought in her head, that's the only thing she'd be able to think about, and she'd be scamming me the whole time. Just another shitty little man pitting women against each other. And it's all about the dollar signs, right, Dave? I mean, he was bragging on his salary. He made more than I did. He made more than my ex ever did. Vicki made a lot more than I did when we worked together, and she made at least 15 grand more than I did when I left for my first IT job. And they knew this. I wasn't in competition. I was just an easy target. And she knew 6 months before she was being offered a severance if she stuck it out until January. At least 6 months. I mean, months before I sold the house, she was saying, I shouldn't have to work. I'm just going to collect my severance and stay home with the kids. Well, do it. She knew she had 2 weeks vacation signed up, and she jumped at the chance to take me for surgery. Thank you. I appreciate it. And she knew all I needed was somebody to stop over every week or two and spend a half hour, run the vacuum, and pull laundry out of the washing machine. I wasn't allowed to push, pull, or lift 5 pounds, more than 5 pounds, and that's all I needed. But, when I moved out of that house, that was the only time she ever showed up to help me move. Not the only time she offered, the only time she showed up. And she stood at the back of that pod saying, "Take that to my house. Take that to my house." The whole time. She bought a couch and love seat for the back room the week I moved in. I didn't think anything about it. I took her to Penny's to buy her living room curtains. She had these big farmhouse windows, 5 windows, and all night long it was just headlights, headlights, headlights. It was disorienting. So I took her to Benny's and bought her nice curtains to thank her for taking me in. Didn't say a word. 2 days later, she loads $150 worth of groceries into the grocery cart and walks away from the register. Yeah, it was like that. How many times the first couple of weeks, she's like, "My friend moved in with her boyfriend and redecorated his whole house, and then he broke up with her." She thought it was so funny, and I'm like, "Why do you think it's so funny? Your best friend was scammed like that." And she just scrunched up her face and walked away. Yeah, she was just pulling a burl. And Dave got 10 times worse when I was staying there. He would just cut me off in mid-sentence, make this exaggerated smile, and she'd stomp off pissed, and he'd just sit there laughing. I was getting ready to go to church one morning, and Vicki goes, "That's just to get out of jail free card." Really? Okay. And Dave walks in the room and goes, "I went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic school." And she turns all purple and leaves the room, and he's just sitting there laughing the whole time. And there was nothing I could say to convince her that I wasn't interested in her little man guy. I mean, he knew how to push her buttons. He had made me the enemy. And she was on a mission to scam me for every penny that she could. The only time she was ever happy to see me was the day the check came for the sale of my house. And as I'm walking in the back door, she runs up to me and she's like, "Your check's here, your check's here. I want. And I said, "And I want to pay my bills." So I sat down to pay my bills, and she sits across from me, and she scrunched up her face and bared all her baby teeth, and she just sat there like this the whole time. And when I finished, I got up and walked away, and she threw a fit for 2 days. 2 days, all she did was rage on Michael. That child could do nothing right for 2 days. And that's why she was trying to start fights with me after my offer was accepted on the condo. She knew she wasn't going to get her whole house redecorated before I left. And I spent $1,780 on her to stay there for 3 months. I paid my way. Oh, I paid dearly. And I bet she didn't use any of it to redecorate her house either. I bet she ate it all. She'd be throwing a fit, and I'd just be standing there with Michael thinking, all the years I stood up for her when people made fun of her looks and called her Down syndrome baby, called her lazy. All the years I bought kids birthday presents, Christmas presents, fundraisers, all the candle parties and toy parties. I always tried to find something, even though it was a bunch of junk I didn't want. I mean, that's what you do for friends, right? Michael wouldn't take his kindergarten test. I went out to North Orangeville and took him in for his test. Not a word. She came into work crying that the dog kept getting out of the yard. I'm like, well, I have the same fence. I'll bring a piece over. Replace the fence, replace the nails with screws. Never said a word, not even a thank you. She needed a sitter one weekend. Picked up the boys, took them out to Port Clinton to the animal safari, spent the whole day with them. Never offered a penny, nothing. They went to Vegas for a week. She brought that child over with one change of clothes and didn't even bring dog food over for her 160-pound golden retriever. That's just what you do for friends, right? Nope. Michael and I just stood there watching her throw fits, and all I could think of was, what was I thinking? I just rationed my pain pills so I could go into a drug-induced coma every evening and watch the Jerry Springer show. So I'm moving out, and I go to the fridge. All the condiments, all the dressings, the meats, all the food I brought over. And she reaches in the refrigerator, pulls out a squeezed bottle of mustard, hands it to me, and slams the refrigerator door and walks away laughing. Okay, Vicki, you keep it. And the desk. She knew I had nothing left, and she had to borrow that desk. She had to have that desk. When I was getting married, Johnny needs a desk. Well, use it. Take it. Now, he's off in basic training, and I asked for that desk back. And she goes, no, I need it. No, I need it. Just keep it, Vicki. So Vicki's like, okay, let's go. And I'm like, no, where's the sewing machine? That sewing machine had to go to the house. She never sewed. She wasn't even smart enough to grab the sewing basket that had everything in it you needed to work the sewing machine. And it sat there in her basement for 3 months. She never mentioned using it. But she was going to keep it. No, you are not entitled to keep my stuff. And then it hit me. Years before, she had borrowed these camp chairs. I mean, I think it was before I got married. And never gave them back. Several times I'd asked her for them, and she never gave them back. And now it's like, I want my camp chairs. Same one I'm using today. Same one that sits on my porch. I want my camp chairs. And she's turning purple, and she's crying. I follow her out to the barn, and she's got 8 folding camp chairs lined up back there. She's just entitled to keep it. And the bicycle. I had a woman's bicycle. Had to go to her house. Why? It's October. Nobody's going to use it. But nope. When I moved out, there was no room to take it home, and Dave said he'd bring it over later. 3 months later, right before I'm going back to work, I go over to get that bike, and sure enough, they'd put the back wheel back on, reconnected the brakes, and been out joyriding on it, ripped up the seat. It's coated in an inch of mud. She was just going to keep it. Yeah. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So I moved out, and for 2 weeks before surgery, I got settled, restocked the kitchen from scratch, and she comes over and gets me to the hospital by 6 a.m. for surgery. And as they're rolling me out of the room, she runs over to the locker, grabs my coat and keys, and runs out of the room. And I holler for her, and she won't stop. She's gone. So the next day, she takes me back to her house to get the dog, and I'm like, I want to go home. She's like, no, stay the night. I want to go home. I mean, after all the craziness, and now Johnny's home from basic training. He's got his girlfriend and his friends in the house. I don't need to be there. I don't want to be there. Take me home. No, I stayed the night. So the next day she comes in from work, and she wants me to take her grocery shopping. No! I know she's just scamming me. I paid my way. And I have my own bills and my own home, and I want to go home now. And she's just laughing. So Dave comes in, and I'm like in his face. I want to go home. I want to go home now. So I get home, and she's broke the garage door opener. Just a little key, and it's just spinning. And she admits she went through everything I had while I was in the hospital overnight, and she just left me standing there. I'm absolutely flabbergasted. But I'm just so glad to be out at this point. So I get settled in, and I'm sorting through stuff, and there's one bin of candle stuff that I have in the closet, and sure enough, she's gone through there and took all the party light stuff I ever bought from her. Wasn't much, but it's the idea. A week or 2 later, I get someone over to help me out, and they get the garage door open. That's a solid wood garage door. I'm not supposed to lift more than 5 pounds. But I've got to get somebody over there to open the garage door so I can get my car out and let it sit outside in the winter because she broke it. And I get in that garage, and sure enough, she's taken one of those camp chairs. Just one. Why? Why didn't you take them both, Vicki? Why didn't you take the sewing machine? You were entitled to it. I mean, I'm just beside myself again. And I call her, and she won't come to the phone. And Dave's just laughing. So 3 months, right before I go back to work, I went over and got the bike, and I called her again, and I caught her. And I'm like, why, Vicki? Why would you do this to me? You know I have no interest in Dave. And you know what she says? You didn't like the way I did laundry. You never did the dishes. Slam. Yeah, and that's the short version. Now, before you think it's just me, before you think I'm exaggerating, let me tell you about Christmas. 3 days before Christmas, she starts on this tangent. She's going on and on about her sister-in-law. She never did enough for me. She never gave me enough. She only gave me scraps for Michael. Scraps. All she ever gave me was scraps. And she never gave me anything for Johnny. I mean, can you say single mother? And Johnny's a foot taller than all the other kids. But hey. And then that should have been my house. That should have been my house. That farmhouse should have been my house. Not Dave's family house should have been Dave's or even theirs. My house. My house. And then she didn't even help me move. She didn't even help me move into this house. 3 days. So Christmas rolls around and her family comes in and everybody's saying hello and Vickie's just moving around the kitchen faster, slamming stuff around. Doesn't say anything. So everybody goes in the living room to visit and I come in and ask Vickie if she needs help and she won't say a word. And Laura comes in and says, Merry Christmas, Vickie. You need any help? And Vickie spins around and says, you didn't even help me move into this house. And Laura says, I spent a week over here cleaning and painting before you moved in. And Vickie spins and runs over to the counter, flips the water on. She's slamming stuff around and Laura leaves. And I had to go upstairs. I'm just besides myself at this point. Because Vickie had told me the house sat empty before they bought it and was used as a party house by the neighborhood teenagers. There was still graffiti on the walls upstairs and busted up woodwork and door jambs like they ran out of time or paint or both. And David sat there one night bitching about the paint. I don't like the paint. I don't like the color. I'd have never painted the ceilings white. I don't like that line on the wall. And I said, oh, you didn't get in and clean and paint before you moved in? Oh, no, it was like this. We just moved right in. They didn't forget. They hadn't lived there for a year. But for 3 months, it was like they were in competition who could come up with the biggest stories. Yeah, I want me some of that. So back to Christmas. Dinner served, Vickie says nothing. They go in the living room to exchange presents. The kids are chatting, they're showing off their gifts. Vickie says nothing. Family gets ready to leave. Everybody's saying goodbye. Vickie says nothing. It's the only thing she said the entire time her family was there for Christmas. You didn't even help me move into this house. Okay, well, I forgive you, Vickie. I forgave you a long time ago. For no other reason that I don't want to be you. I have absolutely no doubt she's still sitting there going, nobody did enough for me. Nobody gave me enough. Their stuff should have been mine. Mine. And 2.5 years later, 2.5 years after Vickie. Now it had been since 2005 that I was being trolled and baited and gaslighted. Started in the church and then worked with Carrie and on the street. I've been to the police and I'm told, you're not rich, you're not famous. Nobody would do anything like this to somebody like you, right? And all the doctors are saying, there's no odor, you're hallucinating. And I'm saying, I don't smell anything either. Nope. 2009, I'm being pushed into therapy and I'm sitting there with Mimi. And I'm trying to discuss what happened. I mean, I'm still heartbroken over it at that point. I mean, they were the last good friends I thought I had on this earth. And she just went psycho on me, using me and stealing from me. And Mimi just got livid, cut me off, ended the session, and shoved me out the door. And sure enough, I go in the work the next day at Software Answers, only to have my manager and coworkers repeating what I was saying to Mimi the day before. Okay, Mimi, you won. If it's on the internet, it must be true, right? Not one decent human being since 2005. Say, hey, you can't guilt and shame me for being divorced. Nobody ever wanted to hear that I was only correcting the biggest mistake of my life up to that point. They just want to tell me I don't belong and ship me off to the singles group or pigeonhole me as being on a manhunt. I went across town twice to a divorce recovery group. And these women are talking now about all they'd been through. And then he left me and I don't understand it. All I ever wanted was to be married. Really? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not responding that way. But I've never seen anything like this. And after the second meeting, I tried to talk to the woman leading the group. And before I could say a word, she just lunged forward and made that face. And Vickie always knew I wasn't on a desperate manhunt. All the time she tried to set me up. And usually without my knowledge. But early on, It was this guy she wanted to fix me up. I'm like, okay, who is he? What's he about? Well, he's single. He's from the bar she used to work at. No, a single barfly. Go figure. And another time, she says, let's go out. Okay. So I meet up, and it's Dave and Vicki and this other couple. And this other couple's this woman's best friend. And the whole time she's rude to me and she's nasty to me and she's putting stuff in my drinks. And then as we're leaving, she goes, well, if you want to go out with my friend. And I'm like, no. I'm like, Vicki, what are you thinking? She just laughs. There's another one. Dave's birthday party. We all go out to breakfast afterwards, and she's trying to fix me up with this guy. This guy hadn't said a word the whole night. Okay, I give him my number. Whole time we're at Country Kitchen, he never has a word to say. Well, maybe he's shy. He calls me the next morning, and he's like, really? Really? Would you really go out with me? I'm like, well, okay. I said, yeah, what do you want to do? Really? Really? He's still at it. Really? 4 times I'm trying to have a conversation with this guy, and all I'm getting from him is, really? Finally, I had to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't think so. And I hung up and I called Vicki, and I'm like, what are you thinking? Who is this guy? She doesn't even know his last name, just some guy that Dave works with. I'm like, this guy never said a word the whole night, and I just had the strangest phone conversation, and she just laughs. Now I always knew Vicki got herself pregnant in order to catch herself a husband, and she caught Dave. She admitted it. She told me that. But she knew I wasn't on a desperate man hunt. And there were so many times looking back that I think she was trying to fix me up, but it just went right over my head because she wouldn't tell me about it because I just couldn't understand how she was picking these guys. And you can't guilt and shame me for my childhood, okay? I know I came from a screwed up family. I had a violent, drunken, narcissistic parent. Actually, most all the adults in the family were right there. And I left home at 15 the right way, okay? Oh, the horror stories I could tell. Vicki and I had that conversation early on when she was complaining that her siblings didn't do enough to help her raise her kids. Once. Because I don't play that victim mentality. I'm a survivor. So to all the Lauras and the Sandys, you gotta tell me everything. You gotta tell me your whole life story or I can't pray for you. Really? And then cut me off in mid-sentence. What about this? What about this? What about that? And then to be ghosted or told, ooh, don't call me, you have too many problems. I'm just floored. And then to have total strangers throwing what I've said back in my face every week. Really? I was a child. Okay? Totally crazy making. I've never known anyone who acted like this. I've never seen anything like it. And I am so sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to pretend to be some pretty princess living some enchanted existence in this world to be part of your clique. I'm only human. And you can't guilt and shame me for not having kids. I never based my self-worth on a bodily function. I always loved kids. Vicki knew that. She took full advantage of it for 13 years. Not every day, not every week, not every month. But she knew I wasn't bringing kids into this world unless I could do better by them than I had had. And I wasn't married 6 months before I realized the mistake I made, and I was on the pill. So you can't. And the body shaming. Come on, ladies. 35 years I've never known women who acted like this. This is what God gave me. This is what 50 looks like. If you don't like it, don't look at it. I certainly don't see a bunch of plastic Barbies wandering around here, or Ken dolls for that matter. Now, I always understood that's all Vicki had. If anybody said something she didn't like, it was, he's fat, she's fat, you're fat. And we all knew she didn't do anything to maintain her weight. I told her, I said, one day it's going to catch up with you. Not everyone can most people can't eat out of vending machines 3, 4, 5 times a day. Pop-Tarts, potato chips, Pepsi all day long. Every day after work she'd get a Wendy's combo on the way home. back when we worked together, still when I stayed there. And she'd bring it in and hide it in the garbage, and she'd make dinner, take the smallest piece of meat and a tablespoon of vegetables, and sit there and pick at it, pretending she did something to maintain her weight. And the whole time raging on Johnny. Fat shaming Johnny for eating like a normal kid. He wasn't fat. He was a foot taller than everybody else. And then later me. Oh no, I just spent $150 this week on groceries, and I don't junk up all day on junk food. I'm eating dinner. And Dave would just sit there and laugh. So yeah, you can't guilt and shame me for anything I've ever said or done, or any mistakes I've ever made. I was never given a manual for living in this world, and I've always done the best I could. I know I'm forgiven. I know I was not created for this. This is not my kingdom, right? It's all about the man God. It's all about the dollar signs. It's all about the power. You just gotta look the right way. Okie doke. All these years I could not get anybody, not friends, managers, HR, therapists, Facebook wouldn't respond, police, cyber professionals, totally blow me off. Not one person in any personal, professional, or leadership capacity, not one has not been willing to drink this Kool-Aid. And all the time, what's going on? Why would you say that? Why would you do that? Anytime I try to defend myself, I'm the one who's crazy, right? It's always, she misunderstood, I'm not perfect. Or I was just joking, she's just too sensitive. Or God made me do this job. I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to deal with this. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but no one is, was, or ever will be perfect in this world. But if this is what you need to hear, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. They misunderstood. I'm not perfect. God made me this way. God gave me this DNA. And I shouldn't have to deal with this. But I still do. It's been one hell of a joke, and I still don't get it. But I'd rather be too sensitive than that calloused and willing to attack and destroy someone for fun and sport. Now I moved to this area in February of 17, and I started going to this food pantry. And they're chatty, and I'm like, nope, I just moved here. Nope, I don't know anybody. I go in the second time, and it's the same thing. Nope, I just moved here. Nope, I don't know anybody. And I go sit down, and they pull my card. And as I'm getting in the next line, this woman goes, oh, why are you limping? Before I can get 4 words out of my mouth, she bulges up her eyes, blows up her face, clenches up her fists, and just turns into a rock, and she's staring at the table. Here we go again. Well, I just chuckle and walk away, and it starts. She's stomping around. I don't like her. I don't like her. I gotta work. I gotta work. I don't like her. Well, I don't know you. I don't know your names. I don't know anything about you. We'll just call her Joya Jr. How's that? Every time I go in there, she's blowing up and doing that rock thing, and then stomping around having a fit after I check in. So I just sit in the back of the room and put my headphones on. Now by July I realize it doesn't matter if I get there at 10 a.m. and stand in line. I'm going to be one of the last 2 people out of there every time. So I just start showing up at 11:25. October 17, I walk in and I'm going up to the table to sign in, and there's this whole row of women I've never seen before. And as soon as I walk by, they're like, oh, there she is, following me around with their cell phones. And Pajamas is at the front desk, and all I'm getting from her is that Carrie face. You know, it's all I ever get from Pajamas is that Carrie face, and I just laugh and walk away. Now the holidays roll around, and I walk in, and the entire atmosphere's changed. Even Junior's walking around talking to people like a normal adult, right? And sure enough, there's a new guy volunteering there. And the holidays are over, and he's gone, and it's game on. Back to the same old, the faces, the fits, the comments, the digs, the cell phones. February, Junior's not there, and this other woman says, you know there's other people ahead of you. Well, yeah, I know. Sure enough, I was 3rd from last. First time in a year. I was third from last. And the women in the back were always polite until I responded one time to her comment about the weather. Didn't even get 4 words out. And she lunges forward and squeals and makes that face. That Karen face. So I always thought Karen was a special snowflake. She's the only one I'd seen who'd done that in 35 years. And I get that all the time now. 15 years, that face. So I just smile and say thank you and take my whoopings, right? I just stay in my lane. So holidays 18 roll around and their little man god's back. I walk in and they're all around the front table and they all lunge forward. Hey, Merry Christmas, how are you? How are you? And I'm like, sure enough, he's back. So I smile and say thank you and stay in my lane. And he's still there. So the last time I go in, I get in line and I do this. And I get in line in that and I get up to the table where he's standing and he goes, I'm not going to try to joke with you. And these women are barely containing themselves. I mean, they're just dying. Well, that's one hell of a joke. Maybe I'm just too sensitive. The only thing I find funny here, and not funny haha, is that I just spent 2 minutes describing 2 years in this place, and he comes in, accepts whatever they've said, and now I'm getting the same attitude. No conversation, no questions asked, no right to defend myself. Same story. So yeah, there are a lot of jerks out there, and they don't have to know each other. But I can go a year, 6 months, 4 months, with maybe isolated incidences like this, and then boom, over 90% of the places I go and 90% of the people I encounter are more than willing to take active part in the trolling, the baiting, and the gaslighting. And it gets so much worse. I mean, they've been breaking into my home here, vandalizing my stuff, poisoning my food, and not just at home, from the food pantries. Abusing my dog again. Carol, psycho Carol. I mean, for 3 weeks, she's just getting cruder and nastier, and she won't take no for an answer. Finally had to block her number. And what's she doing? Trashing me around town and sicking her friends on me. Okay, Carol, you get your own video. So yeah, I'm taking requests. I got 15 years of this. I could spend the next 15 videos taking requests. So back to what do I want? I already told you. I want to do something to keep this from happening to anybody else. Social media is not regulated like any news source or media outlet. They don't want to be, and they don't want to do it themselves. They'd probably lose half their customer base and half their advertising dollars if they didn't allow fake news, sensationalism, and terrorist hate groups like this. I mean, Zuckerberg's newest plan is to create simple, intimate spaces where you have complete confidence that what you say and do is private. Really? Great. So we're just more of the same old, hey, didn't see it, can't prove it, and that Carrie face. Yeah, who's going to regulate that? So that's it for today. Again, taking requests.